Oh, hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm meteorologist Eric Fisher, and if you are tuning in right now and watching all this, you're a fellow science nerd. We'd love to hear that. We've got a big event coming up next week. We've got the total solar eclipse that'll be taking place across much of the country. Joined by Jacob Wyckoff, Alyssa Andrews here as well, next weather team, and we're going to be talking about what you can expect during the big show that'll be taking place here in just a short while. Not next Monday, but the Monday thereafter.
And we are streaming on CBS News Boston, also on YouTube. I'm going to be following along on the YouTube stream. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them there, and I'll try to chime in and interrupt. I won't interrupt you guys, but we'll get those questions over to you.
You're allowed to interrupt us. We want to hear from you.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and don't forget, on the actual day of the eclipse, Monday, April 8th, we're going to have live coverage. We're going to carry special coverage throughout the entire event from 2 to 3:30. So we'll be picking up the network's CBS broadcast of total eclipse coverage.
All right, so why do you care? Why do any of us care about this? Well, these are fairly rare events. Now, in any given year, yes, you're going to find a total solar eclipse somewhere across the world, but it might be in Antarctica. It might be just over the open ocean. Most of the planet is ocean. It's usually not in your backyard. And the next time we'll have one in our backyard, in fact, one will pass right over Boston, is 2079. So it is going to be a wait, which is why it might be worth it to make that trip this time around to head up toward northern New Hampshire, northern Vermont, or northern Maine. So when we talk about the exact track here, what are we actually be watching as it takes place across the country? Just a little bit of a preview of where things will begin and where they're going to go. First off, we'll start in Mexico, and then start to move into the southern tier of the United States.
Yeah, so Mexico is going to be the first place that starts to see totality. What we'll watch for is hopefully some clear skies. That's going to be the first thing. But Mexico will see that moon break up the sun's rays and start to get that Pac-Man. I think you called it Pac-Man a little.
Yeah. Start taking a big bite out of that sunshine.
Exactly. And then we'll start to see it go through Texas and eventually through parts of the Great Plains. So here we have it here. This is the path of totality, that's what we call it. And each of us are actually going to be traveling to the path of totality in our own various spots. I'm going to be traveling to Dallas, Texas.
I've got Austin, Texas. I booked my trip more than a year in advance, which a lot of fellow eclipse goers probably in the same boat because this will be a hugely popular event.
Yep.
And Alyssa, back to your roots.
Yes, I'll be traveling back to Indianapolis, and plane tickets, whew, they were not playing around. So everyone was trying to travel, along the path of totality to see this big event. So I'll be going just a little bit south of Indianapolis, where I'm from, and we should be right there in the path. It's going right over my parents' house. Great setup.
We'll be sending the crew up north here in New England as well. So here's a general look at the path, and something to point out about the path with this event that's a little bit different. Each one of these is not exactly the same. Sometimes they line up for a very short path on the Earth's surface. Sometimes they're much longer, sometimes they're skinnier, sometimes they're wider. This is an exceptionally wide total eclipse path. It's going to be over 100 miles wide, which is significantly different than what we had in 2017. This will allow more people to actually be in that zone, passing just west of Austin, Texas there, up through Dallas. You head just north of Little Rock. Here you take a look at the whole progression here coming out of Mexico, and you can see Austin's on that far eastern end, Waco, Texas. There's Jacob in Dallas, hopefully. And then as it progresses north from there, it'll head on up through the middle of Arkansas, Hot Springs, Little Rock area. We continue to move north. I think this will be a beautiful area, by the way. Parts of Arkansas are so gorgeous, so that should be some nice terrain. And then you make your way up through western Kentucky. You see Terre Haute in Indiana here, Indianapolis, right in the main path. We're heading into 3 in the afternoon at this point in the game. Then it comes up across the eastern Great Lakes. Here's where it gets interesting for us. We get into, now we're moving past Syracuse. Let's head up into northern parts of New England. Also the Adirondacks, we should say. Beautiful spot that'll be in the path. Then you head into places like, oh boy, we're all over the place. Burlington. You can be out on a boat on Lake Champlain and check it out. You can be in the Northeast Kingdom, good spot. Basically in Vermont, you want to be around or just north of Montpelier. And then into northern portions of New Hampshire, after it passes over Joe's Pond there, northern Vermont, heads up toward Dixville Notch, and then it'll continue into northern Maine. You could be up across, say, Katahdin. If you were feeling very adventurous, you could hike up there around 3:30 in the afternoon, and then it exits up by Presque Isle. So this would be quite a day across the country.
And the big discussion leading up to this, we have our weather models that can forecast some cloud cover. It's a little early as of right now, but we're all kind of peeping, and we're trying to look at the show, right? and we're trying to figure out where we need to be. Historically, climatologically speaking, northern New England, not a great place to be but it's still in totality.
Miracles happen.
Miracles happen. The last 2 years.
Last couple of years, we had clear sky on April 8th. That said, it is climatologically the cloudiest time of year. Could not be worse in terms of New England cloud cover, which we get a lot of grumbling for just in general here in March, April, and May. Everyone wants sunny 70-degree days, and they're just not that common this time of the year. But it is possible. Be a little extra dark if it was cloudy and we got into totality, but we're hoping for a little bit of a break. One thing we should point out here, because some of you might be into watching models and watching us and others on Twitter or other places posting data, really 3 or 4 days out is when we'll start to have a good idea. There could be 5 cumulus clouds in the sky that day, and one might be over the sun at that time.
Right now, it's just kind of fun and games. I've already planned ahead for my path. Somewhere in the Midwest, what my plan is to get there early on Sunday morning and then just drive as far southwest as I need to until we can set up shop where it's going to be clear skies for the next day. And even so, you could get that unlucky, like what happened in Carbondale, and a cloud pops over right in the peak of totality. So
You always say, you bring up a great point. It's good to be flexible when you're planning for this event, because chances are there might be some last minute travel. You might want to drive a few hundred miles at the last minute. I mean, this is something that comes up with these, and eclipse chasers know all too well that, things don't always go according to plan. This is a look at that cloud climatology, by the way, which is basically looking back at averages over all the years on record. How many days were cloudy? How many are sunny? It doesn't necessarily mean it's the forecast this year. It's playing the odds. It's basically playing the lottery. So you look down toward Texas. That's where we have the lowest odds of cloudy skies, especially toward the western and southwest corner of that path. And then you see those grays up around the Great Lakes in the northeast. That's where there's the highest chance, based on history, of cloud cover. But I wouldn't say don't plan on checking it out based on this. It's just about the odds.
And that's actually one of our viewer questions that we had. Is it worth it to travel from Massachusetts to New Hampshire? And the answer is absolutely yes. If you have the ability to get in totality, you have to do so. You may think it's only 7 or 10% difference. It makes the world of difference. You're talking about some shadows to complete darkness. And so it is absolutely worth it to get to totality.
I learned that the hard way. I was in Terre Haute. Yeah, in the 2017 eclipse, I was actually in Terre Haute, and I was just 3 hours, a 3-hour drive without traffic to Carbondale. And I'm like, oh, I'm at 95%. I'm fine. No, it's going to be so worth it to drive to totality, make the trip, do the plan if you can.
Yeah, most people do not realize this, how big the difference is. We've been talking with some friends in the newsroom here, and they said they had plans about going to a great place that has 98.5% totality. Not totality.
It's not, yeah.
You might get a subtle dimming at that, but that's it. You're not going to get the corona showing up around the edges of the moon. 93% here in Boston. You can see in graphic sense, yeah, it would kind of look like that if you had your eclipse glasses on. You still can't look at it with your bare eyes without any protection unless it's a complete total eclipse. Not even a few seconds earlier. You could really damage your eyes if you do so otherwise. This would give you maybe a little tiny subtle dimming, but that would be all that you notice. You're not going to get that really otherworldly experience. There's no other way to describe it.
No, that's right. And that's the reason I wasn't super pumped about, oh, the next one's coming up in 2024, because I didn't experience totality. So I was like, but now I'm really excited. That's what gets you so excited for these events, to actually experience the whole thing.
Now, you've experienced it before.
I traveled in 2017 as well, yes.
And where did you head for that one?
So I followed the climatology.
Okay.
Because weather geeks. And I went to Wyoming.
Yep.
I thought it was the safest bet. It was crystal clear.
Perfect.
So history worked out there. It was wild to watch. I mean, you just watch this huge, all-encompassing shadow just coming across the terrain toward you, and then it's lights out. And it's so quiet, and it's not pitch black like the middle of the night, but it's not like anything you would see in the middle of the day, especially considering this is happening basically at the peak of the day, at 2 in the afternoon in many spots. And then you take off the eclipse glasses, and you look up, and you're...
Yeah.
Like, it's indescribable, really, if you have a chance to do it, because there's not another chance unless you're going to travel somewhere else in the world for a long time. This is the opportunity.
I actually worked with a gentleman, a meteorologist in DC, and he would travel every couple years. He was an eclipse chaser. That's what he would do. He would travel to Russia. He would travel all around the world. And so it sounds like the otherworldly experience that you experienced, now it's coming a little bit closer to home, but you're still traveling to Texas based on the climatology.
It's also, sometimes people like to take end of winter, some warmer weather
weekends.
Well, instead of like Florida or Puerto Rico, we decided to go to Texas this year. So I dragged the whole family. My wife said, do we really have to go? I said, yes, this is a mandated dad trip, science adventure. You're
Yes.
all coming with me because there's not going to be another opportunity here. And I did want to mention, because you asked about the last time
Yeah.
and the travel, one of the memories that I have really seared into my head from that was we camped out in Yellowstone, and then we were going to drive to a mountain peak that was kind of more remote to get away from some crowds. And what I remember is we were in the tent, and it was maybe 4 in the morning, and you started to hear all the car engines turning on and the doors slamming. And it was like the total evacuation of the campground. Everyone was running to get to their spots. There will be a lot of traffic.
Yes.
And especially here where roads are a little tighter heading into northern New England, there's only a couple of ways to get up to those spots. I would plan on a lot of extra time, both going in and going out.
I know that Texas has already declared a state of emergency because of the amount of people they're expecting. The migration to Texas for just a couple of days. They're telling some of their residents to plan ahead, buy the milk and eggs like we do for our snowstorms.
Goodness. Wow.
They're just expecting that rush to slam the roads. So yes, definitely plan ahead.
Indianapolis has shut down schools, churches, businesses already. I mean, this is a couple months ago. They were already saying, okay, we're out of session, and just to go enjoy it, because
Yeah.
for Indianapolis residents being so close, get outside, look up. And so that's pretty cool that people are able to take the day off.
You mentioned Carbondale a little earlier. That is a very unique place because 2017,
Both.
it crossed over Carbondale, and then this one, it's crossing over Carbondale. It's kind of rare to have that sort of
Very rare.
access
Yeah.
like that.
Back to back.
Back to back, yeah.
That's wild. We've talked a little bit about the glasses. So a little mention about what you're going to try to get. Of course, they look like nothing all that special here.
3D glasses
Like,
almost.
Yeah, like 3D glasses you'd get at the movie theater. You pop these on, this is lights out, and you don't see anything. And I've actually been testing these out with my son. We've just been looking at sunspots right now because the sun is active. And if you look up, you would see some of the bigger sunspots with these. There are a couple things you want to look for on these glasses. They want them to be ISO approved here. So if you look at some of the requirements, it says ISO 12312.2, I should say. So they will have a certification on them, and you want them maybe from a very reputable spot. I got these from greatamericaneclipse.com. But there are some hacks that you don't have to use these as well.
Yeah, you can use the pinhole camera.
Pinhole projector.
Yep, pinhole projector. You can also use the shadow in trees. You can see the crescent, the Pac-Man bite out of the trees. So those are ways that you can kind of hack it.
Yeah, and if you've worked in some trades, you might have some welding glasses,
Yep.
welding shield. That would work very well. You could also use that as a tool if you don't have to buy anything. Those block out. They have the proper eye protection.
Remember the last clips, these were a hot commodity, and they were running out of Eclipse glasses everywhere. I know a lot of optometrists were selling them, and those went over well, because you know those are going to be the real thing, the real deal.
Absolutely.
We've got a couple of looks at some timing of Totality for this event here in New England. This one is for those who, obviously New Hampshire and Vermont will probably be very popular. They're common routes. If you want to go a little farther and maybe get into somewhere a little more remote, up in Caribou, it's after 3 in the afternoon. Now in Lancaster, you get your 100% Totality at 3:27. So this is basically right at the southern end of the path of Totality in New Hampshire. And then anywhere north of there, you'd be in it as well.
And it says partial eclipse begins, partial eclipse ends. This is sort of a slow burn, if you will.
It is.
It's a little bit of a long build-up,
Yeah.
but it is absolutely worth it to be in that Totality.
Yeah.
Where it just goes completely dark.
Bring some board games, some cards. You look, you're like, all right, it's progressing.
Yeah.
Nothing's really happening except this slow change. It is kind of remarkable when you think about it. The shadow that's projected by the moon, it takes almost the entire thing to be covered for anything to happen. I mean, even at 98%, it basically still feels like a sunny day.
Right.
But when you actually look out with the glasses, you're going to see almost all of it covered, and it still brings that much daylight.
I know that one of your questions is, what was it? How far out in advance can we predict these, right? And math is amazing. Put our minds into, 1,000, 2,000 years ago and them experiencing an eclipse like this. It's otherworldly, even nowadays, but they didn't have the same technology as us. Can you imagine what they were thinking? They just see the sun go completely dark, and you can imagine why they said the gods are mad at us or something like that.
Imagine them trying to tell their friends that were maybe in the 95% range, like, that didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine being one of the few that saw Totality and trying to tell everyone about it?
Exactly.
The group from the next town
Yeah.
over is like, what are you talking about? These people have all lost their minds.
Yep.
But there are big moments in history where we basically know when there have been total solar eclipses, because if you were in it, you made notes.
Oh, yeah.
You were writing that down. Like, today I saw, dear diary, the sun went dark for 4 minutes. So these are really just some exceptional events. And even today, I think that a lot of people are surprised about the emotions that come out when you see it actually occur. It might be the only time in your life you see something like that.
And you bring up a good point, because it could spur the next generation of astronomers. People, we encourage them as meteorologists to look up. This could be the next astronomer that gets inspired.
You think about Neil deGrasse Tyson's history as a kid in the Bronx. So growing up in New York and not seeing the sky, and he went out to camp in upstate New York one day and he said, wait, what?
There's stars above us?
Oh, that's up there? And
Yeah.
that was it. Like, he was hooked. He was all in on it. So maybe it's an event like this, like you said. That's like our big snowstorm or our tornado that got us into it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so are you super excited for this?
I am. I'm mostly excited because I didn't do it right the first time, and I was so close too. So, you know, I'm going to do it right this time.
There you
and
go.
I'm going to make sure I'm taking the plane ticket. I've got the car ready to go that morning. Like, if I need a road trip all day long, if I need to camp out, we're planning on camping out either way, whether we stay put or travel south a little bit. So we're gonna do it right. I did get the topic of some viewer questions though. People were asking about when the next time a solar eclipse may be in Boston.
Okay.
And so 2079 is the next chance. So maybe some youngins watching might have a chance to see Totality, and that would be right around sunset or sunrise. In New England.
And we're up on YouTube as well. If
Yes.
anyone's been sending any questions in, if you do have any questions, you can pop them our way. We'll try to answer them the best we can here, as we're up on a couple of different mediums.
So no viewer questions yet on YouTube,
Okay.
but we will. I think you have a couple too.
Well, one was just what will it look like in Boston.
Okay.
Think, you know, we talked about it a little bit earlier how.
Sorry.
Just that you won't see a lot. I mean, you'll see it with these, but you're not going to get the full dramatic effect in Boston.
That's the difference of 7% or whatever.
It's
it is.
well worth the field trip.
Yes.
You wouldn't think that small percentage makes that big of a difference, but wow, it does.
Yep. Absolutely. I did a story a couple weeks ago with an organization, the Harvard Center for Astrophysics. They built this device called Light Sound, and it is an accessible way for blind and low vision people to see and experience these eclipses. And if you get a chance, you can throw it to Google, just Light Sound CBS Boston. It's a really cool story, and it's a way for everyone to get involved with the eclipse. And I know that Allison, if you're watching, Allison, shout out to you. She's going to be traveling to Hot Springs, Arkansas. She's like, it's not going to be the Texas where everyone's going to, and she plans on getting into the Ozarks and stuff.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated doing that, because I think getting science to everyone is really important. So just want to give a shout out to them.
Yeah, that was a fascinating story.
Thank you.
People could experience it in a different way, but still be part of it with everybody.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. What are you most looking forward to?
Just that couple of minutes of quietness when everything goes dark. I cannot wait to experience the actual real big show for the first time. Just experiencing something new like that with everybody knowing that it's happening, where everyone is along their path of totality, that we're doing that together at the same time. Well, you know, varying times, but doing
It's a shared experience.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to do this with my kids. We just got back from Iceland a month or so ago. They got to see the Northern Lights. Exposing kids to science, I feel like, is so important. And to be able to do this with them and show them that there is a world, nature is important, science is important. I'm really excited to do that dad thing, like you said, back in 2017, and just enjoy that with them.
Yeah, I feel the same way, you know, trying to inspire them for something a little bit bigger. You know,
Right.
See that the world is a huge place and that it's a very complex place, and some things that were unexplained we now have answers for, but then there's the next unexplained thing that we can move to after that. I'm hoping that there's going to be, because we're near solar maximum, a large prominence or a flare coming off the sun. If we can see something like that when the corona is visible, I think that would be a really big treat. And one thing, I don't want to be like, you know, oh, Dad, shut up.
It's all right. You're allowed to do that.
It goes fast. I mean, once
Yeah.
you're in it, you've got, depending on where you're on the path, you know, 2.5 to 4.5 minutes, and then it's gone. The phone, I don't have it right now. It's not on my hip. That's amazing. Don't have the phone out for too long. I know everyone is, you know, we're all going to look for the Instagram moment and the TikTok moment, but be in the moment, because it will be there and it'll be over, and it's going to be your only chance for a lot of people to soak in that moment.
My advice, set up a tripod and let it go, let it record the reaction. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a drone up, get the shadow coming over us from above, and then we'll get the family reaction, and then I don't have to worry about it, right? Just soak it in with the family for sure.
All right, well, we'll be talking about it over the next week and a half as we lead up to April 8th. We'll have you covered on WBZ Day of and on CBS News Boston. If you have questions between now and then, we're on all the time. We're on social media all the time. Just shoot us some of those questions. We will try to point you in the right direction and give you the best answers. And until then, we'll talk about rain. Well, that's starting tonight on WBZ as well.